Tempus here, hello and welcome to the Spirit Kings, the vault boss in the Mogu-shan Vaults raid. The Spirit Kings are a very interesting encounter, and I hope that after going through this guide, you have a total ball killing these suckers. In this encounter, you will have to fight 4 different bosses. Each one brings different abilities to the table, and each one also has an ability that will be used even after they are killed. Due to the insane amount of abilities, this fight can take a bit of time to get used to. For that reason, feel free to watch this video as many times as you need to in order to grasp what to do. The first boss you get is always the same. After that one, the rest will be randomed. The next boss that you will fight will be shown by a sort of ghost ring swirling around him while inactive. The first boss is called Kyung the Merciless, and he has 3 abilities. Massive Attacks, Annihilate, and Flanking Orders. Massive Attacks makes him attack in a cone, splitting the damage between everyone in front of him. For this reason, it is imperative that people be stacked up on top of the tank. Being stacked up on the tank also makes dealing with the next ability much easier. Annihilate is a frontal AoE attack shown by rumbling ground in front of the boss. When he starts doing this, you have about 3 seconds to get out of the way, lest you be one-shot. In order to dodge this while being stacked up on the tank, simply run through the boss when he starts casting. His final ability is called Flanking Orders. This is his ability that he will use even after he has been killed, so get used to it, because you will have to deal with it for the entire fight. Flanking Orders summons a row of Mogu uglies which cleave as they walk forward. They are not attackable, they are not targetable, and they will only move in a straight line together. Getting hit by them will cause instant death, unless you use some sort of invulnerability effect. Dodging this is very simple, and only requires that you move out of their way by going to either side and letting them pass you. Keep in mind that because you must be stacked up for some of the bosses, it is very important that somebody call the direction ahead of time so that everyone can move at once. So, for this boss, what you have to do is stack up on the tank, run through him for Annihilate, and keep dodging the Flanking Orders as a group. After taking out Kyung, your group will have to fight one of the other 3 bosses. First up, we will look at Subutai the Swift, who again has 3 abilities. Rain of Arrows, Volley, and Pillaged. Rain of Arrows will create a volley of arrows at a random raid member's location. These arrows will pin the person and anyone else within 8 yards of them to the floor, where they will be unable to move and will take quite a bit of damage. As soon as somebody has been pinned, everybody should swap to and kill the arrows sticking out of the person right away. Volley is a 3-phase frontal cone AoE attack. The first volley will be in a very wide cone and will deal a medium amount of damage. The second volley is in a narrower cone and deals even more damage. The third volley is in a narrower cone than the second and deals an incredible amount of damage. When Subutai uses volley, people should move out of the way, either by going behind him or by moving so far to the side that you are no longer within the cone of attack. The closer you are to the boss, the easier it is to dodge, as you will not have to run so far. His final ability is Pillaged, which is his persisting ability that once you kill him will still be used for the rest of the fight. The boss charges at a random raid member and starts spinning. Everyone should get out of the way and stay out of the way while the boss is spinning, as getting hit by this will reduce your damage and healing by 50% for 15 seconds, so melee will just have to wait until it's over to resume attacking the boss. For Subutai, the raid should be spread out due to Rain of Arrows. Once Rain of Arrows is used, the pinning arrow should be nuked down right away as to free the player. Making sure to avoid getting hit by a volley. Odds are you will get hit by the first wave of volley, but getting hit by subsequent waves could cause death. And just avoid pillage when it's used and stay away from the boss for its duration. Bear in mind that you will also have to deal with any persisting abilities from previously killed bosses in the encounter. And now it's time to talk about Meng, another boss that you will have to fight at a random part in the fight. Meng is, in my opinion, both the easiest to deal with and the hardest, as his ability can make for some incredibly unkind RNG at times. Meng has 2 states, Crazed and Cowardice. In Crazed, he deals increased physical damage based on 200% of his insanity. In Cowardice, he reflects damage back to the raid at an amount equal to half his current insanity, so higher insanity equals more damage reflected. His insanity is shown by an energy bar on his portrait. He will gain insanity slowly over time, and also use an ability to gain 10 insanity called Crazy Thought. This spell is interruptible. It is not particularly important that you interrupt it. However, if you are going to do so, then it's best you get it at the right time. Which is, at low energy, you want to interrupt it as much as possible, so as to keep him at low energy for as long as you can. At high energy, you do not want to interrupt at all, so as to push him into the next personality and reset his energy. His final ability is also the ability that he will use even after killed, and is called Maddening Shout. What this does is it makes everyone in the raid able to hurt each other, and while you are under this spell's effects, you will take a large amount of shadow damage every few seconds. In order to deal with this ability, players should stack up just before it is cast and AoE each other with pure damage. You only need to deal 40,000 damage to break a player out, and it is very important that you use pure damage abilities. No stuns, no CC, no dots, as you only want to break the effect, you don't want to kill your friends. So, for this fight, you can stand wherever you like, depending of course on the previous bosses that you fought. However, you must stack up for Maddening Shouts and AoE each other. Watching the boss's energy bar is imperative, as during Crazed your tank will take heavier damage and should use a cooldown at higher energy. During Cowardice, while the boss is running around like a headless chicken, the entire raid should watch their DPS, as the more you hurt him, the more he hurts you. So at higher energy, stop DPS until he changes into the next phase. Another thing to note is that during Cowardice, you do not want to stack up on the boss for Maddening Shout and AoE, as your AoE damage will get reflected, which will just hurt you even more and potentially kill people. So you can all stack on a marked player or a marked part of the room. The other boss is Xian of the Endless Shadow. This boss requires that you stay spread out. However, you will have to change positions based on previously killed bosses. This boss has 3 abilities: Charged Shadows, Shadow Blast, and Undying Shadows. Charged Shadows is a spell that deals high damage to a target and then jumps to anyone within 8 yards of the player, so be sure to stay spread out. Shadow Blast is an interruptible spell that the boss will use on a random player, dealing damage to them and everyone within 8 yards of them. This is yet another reason to stay spread. However, to limit damage intake, players should try to interrupt this spell when possible. His final ability is Undying Shadows. This creates an ad on a random player. The ad will then fixate on the nearest player and chase them, pulsating an AoE effect to anyone near it. To deal with these ads, simply have the person it is focused on kite it to the edge of the room, where it should be killed by ranged DPS. Melee should not go near it, and everyone should avoid it as a whole due to the pulsating AoE. Once killed, it leaves a puddle of ick on the floor, which you don't want to stand in, as, with all ick, it hurts people that stand in it. The puddle will slowly shrink over time until it turns back into an ad, which will again fixate on the nearest player, who should kite it away from players. The ad should then be killed by ranged, and once killed for a second time, the ad will cease to exist. It is imperative that people keep the ad away from players, as stacking up with the ad could easily cause a wipe. So, for this boss, simply spread out and kite the ad if it fixates on you. Tanks, be sure to stay far away from any ad puddles, so it doesn't fixate on you. How you deal with the fight changes based on the bosses beforehand, of course. Now I will go through the retained abilities one more time and how they can interact with each other. Flanking orders is something you will have to deal with from start to finish, so get used to running and dodging this. To make it easier, whichever boss you are fighting can be tanked in the center of the room, and that makes it easier to dodge the wall of death. For Maddening Shout, you must be stacked up. If you are caught unstacked, you will most likely die. As long as you stack up, it should not be a problem. If this happens at the same time as flanking orders, the whole group must move in the same direction so as to keep stacked. Using AoE moves that can be cast while moving is a good idea. Things such as a mage's arcane explosion can really help. But if you cannot break it while moving, then dodge the wall of death and AoE as hard as you can. Healers will need to heal everyone back up afterwards. If you have to deal with Maddening Shout on a boss that requires you to be spread out, then you must wait until Maddening Shout is about to be cast, at which point everyone must run in and AoE, so watch those boss mods timers. Keep in mind that if you have an ad on you and Maddening Shout happens, you should keep the ad away from players, because if you walk into the group with an ad on full health, you will pretty much wipe the raid. However, you will still have to be broken out of it, so you have one option if you hope to survive, which is to stay away from the group while kiting the ad, but try to stay within 30 yards of the group so that ranged can single target you down and break the effects of Maddening Shout on you. However, to deal with this, it is easier to kill the ad and then stack up, if possible. Pillaged is the least serious of all abilities. Just try to spread out for it and avoid it as best you can. Even if a few people get hit by it, it isn't a train smash, so just relax and keep going while dodging everything else. The next thought is, when should you use Time Warp, Bloodlust, or Heroism? The simple answer is it's up to you, and you have several options. If you use it early on, then there will be less to dodge, which means more DPS. If you use it later on in the fight, it can really help you get through some tough spots. Personally, we found using it early on the best option, as later on in the fight we were moving so much that we couldn't really get very much out of it. But the choice is up to you, and it's best to use it where your group has the difficulty. It's very important to be patient with this fight, as the insane amount of abilities can take quite a bit of learning. So just focus on learning how to deal with the abilities above all else, as once you can handle the abilities, it's a kill. There is also an achievement here called Getting Hot in Here, which is part of the Glory of the Pandaria Raider achievement. To do this, you must have the entire raid use a /dance emote on Subutai the Swift after getting hit by Pillaged. In order to do this, everyone should make a /dance macro, and then once hit with Pillaged, use it. One way to do this is to have everyone run into the pillage and use the macro. Keep in mind that you do not have to kill the boss after doing this, so if it's too much of a problem, you can get hit by the pillage, dance, get the achievement, and then wipe it and go for a kill the next time. And that's it for this guide for the Spirit Kings. I hope this guide helped you out and that you found it enjoyable. And if you did, then be sure to comment, rate, and subscribe for more. You can also follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/DGTempusFugit. Now go dethrone the Spirit Kings. Viva la Revolution!